We are back. It is our last episode of the year. Declan, Quinny, a year in review 2022. We said last week, Quinny, well, I said last week we weren't going to do this, but I think we kind of did the year as a whole a kind of disservice, just picking out, 3 moments because that was so difficult. Getting that Champions League anthem back in our first game back in the Champions League, Flag Day, Trophy Day, winning the league, Derby victories. We've got it all. We'll have a look back in it all. But as we're recording this pod, it's only really happened within the last hour. Celtic have yet another January signing. It's another free signings in the door before Hugmanay. This one's taking a wee bit longer. It seems really daft to say that because obviously we get Alistair Johnson and Yuki Kobayashi in so quickly, but we've got Tomoki Iwata in from Yokohama. Just initially your thoughts on this one. It's been brewing for a wee while now. It went a wee bit quiet, but yet again, Ange Postecoglou delivers with another signing.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great signing. I think it's a really one. It's a great exciting. It's a great signing for us to be excited about. Tomoki Iwata is a name that I've been familiar with for the last 2 or 3 years. From looking at the J League and whatever. Like when he was at Tokyo, he was one of these guys that had great underlying numbers. And that season, Kawasaki won the league, in Yokohama, managed by Ange at that point, weren't doing too great. I think they finished 6th or 7th that season. They did really poor. And then that summer, he brought in Maeda from Portugal and he brought in Iwata from Tokyo. And they had some other signings as well, but they then went to win the league the next year and then he came here, kind of thing, So I think the fact that Maeda was such an important signing for Ange when he first came in, and with this kind of exodus that we're now having of Abelgard and Nadaguchi and whatever, it kind of felt to me that he's went into the transfer room committee, war room, whatever, and he's went, right, no effing about anymore. Get these 4 lads out and just go get the guy that I know works. So I think it's a very exciting signing for the squad as a whole.
Yep, the defensive midfield, number 6, whatever you want to call it, positions probably not been properly filled. The man who he'd likely kind of say, fit that bill was Near Beaton, who obviously departed in the summer. And then since then, Yusuke Deguchi just hasn't worked out for various reasons. We've seen reports in the past week since we've been on, Quinny, about Oliver Abelgard, that there was a potential for Celtic to possibly tear up his contract. But maybe we'll talk about those guys that you mentioned. Obviously, James McCarthy's also in that mix of names when you're talking about that position. But as you say, I find it incredible that when we signed Kobayashi, I thought, is this the final time we go to the G League at this point in time? And obviously it's not. And again, it's one, as you say, it does excite you because you're bringing in another ready-made first-team player. It's not a development player. You're bringing in somebody who's going to possibly walk into the first team. It begs the question, I think you won the MVP over in Japan. Does that move Callum McGregor further forward? Does Iwata play in a further forward position? Because we know that from Ange's comments on him here that he speaks about his versatility, which, as we know, is something Ange Postecoglou absolutely adores in any player. Callum McGregor's got that, Aaron Moy's got it, and he's looking for those kind of midfielders that can do that. Matt O'Reilly's obviously got it. We now know that Rio Hitati can play as a right back. He was described as a utility player when he signed for Celtic, if you remember right.
Yep.
And had played a lot of games at left back for Kawasaki. But as you say, it appears that probably Ange's just, and I know this guy works. He signed him for Yokohama. I don't think he really had a chance to play him at all before he made that move to Celtic. He's obviously been a key part of Kevin Muscat's team that's went on to win the league there. And again, it's a really exciting prospect to be bringing into the team. And again, really exciting arrivals from the J League and Iwata and Kobayashi.
Yeah, now there's a wee bit of a trope in the J League over the last 20 years or so that if you won Young Player of the Year, you would definitely move to Europe the following summer. And now we've definitely got a bit of a Celtic
You'll
trope
just
on
move
the
to
go.
Celtic.
Yeah. If you win Player of the Year,
just come to Celtic,
or get top goal scorer, then we're probably going to be looking at you. Hearts have actually signed a wee boy from the J League today as well, so it might be, or yesterday, I think they were hotly linked to.
Yeah, I saw that link. Yep.
The Japanese Mbappe, they're calling him. So we'll see. So maybe it's just a bit, it's. I was surprised we went back for Kobayashi. I was also quite surprised we went back for Iwata, but both of them, I think we said about Kobayashi at the time, it's the left-footed centre-back. It's like a guy he knows, a guy he's had exposure to, and it's a position that we've struggled to fill. And again, this backup to McGregor, if that's the primary role this guy's going to do, we've struggled to find anyone that could be capable of doing that. But we spoke about on the channel before, Declan, about, I think it was quite early in the season, how like Yokohama, if you look at them towards like Ange's season 2 and all that kind of stuff that we've heard about before, they moved much more into what would be closer described as a 4-2-3-1 versus the formation that maybe we recognise now. Now, if you actually watch Celtic, which we all do, obviously, the position that you find O'Reilly taking is very, very high. And then we find, like, just to use the people that have mainly played there all season, you then find that Rio and McGregor build a midfield kind of bank with the fullbacks. So then that O'Reilly figure is almost like a second forward, is up in the final third. So I think in a roundabout way, in game, in possession, we've kind of got to that formation. So maybe he sees him, like you've just suggested there, maybe coming in to sit alongside McGregor and brush up behind him and let him maybe go a bit more advanced in that role that we've maybe seen Rio Hatate try to do a bit more, that box-to-box effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was something that we all said going into the Champions League. It would maybe hope that Celtic would maybe look at doing. That could be something that the manager's potentially thinking about going into next season in European football. But it's just a signing that it does strike me with excitement. And again, with Kobayashi, you're kind of looking at it that, but we've heard so much about Kobayashi being one for the future in terms of the national team. Iwata coming in is also an exciting one, joining his counterparts, when Kyogo, Rio Hatate, and Daisa Maeda. Doesn't look as if it's going to look out for Yusuke Deguchi, but our track record so far of shopping in the J League has went very well, and hopefully this is another one. And again, long-term deal, very exciting, and it's good that we've got that cover in there. What do you think that means for the other guys that I mentioned earlier on? I think looks as if it's time up for Deguchi and probably Abelgard anyway.
Yeah, I think that's all the reporting, isn't it? That the Abelgard deal is going to get put in the shredder, and Deguchi's already got people lined up to take him back home. And then there's been a lot of rumours as well about McCarthy just being released, and then there's somebody else, Scott Robertson, of course, we spoke about him last week. He'll be on the move as well. So that's 4 guys out for 1 guy in, which I don't know how Ange feels about that squad-wise, because we know he likes depth, he likes options and such. But financially, it should actually give us a wee bit of freedom, because I don't imagine between the 4 of those guys that were on peanuts,
No.
So maybe it freezes up. Maybe we see another. Maybe we get another January signing.
Well, it's probably freed up the wages for the 3 guys that have came in so far, and potentially, if we're looking at any new deals for guys, it can be the money that's used for that. But yeah, a signing I think all Celtic fans, Quinny, will be delighted with. It might be the final mark in 2022, but I want to cast your mind back to the beginning of 2022. See how I did that there. Obviously, to do this pod, I had to wear my new sporting Ange Postecoglou jumper that my mum and dad got me for Christmas. An essential for all Celtic fans out there, both male and female. You can get it in all good retailers. I'm not on commission for doing this, by the way, Quinny, but it is an absolute belter jumper, and it's cozy, by the way. I can understand why the big man wears it with the tie and the shirt on under it. But let's go back. January 2022. I think firstly, going into the year, it wasn't really football that was probably, as an Ange cough back, on our minds. It was the worry of not getting to the football, not the team in the park that was the worry. It was not getting to the games behind closed doors at McDermott Park. Winter breaks brought forward, and then hallelujah, we get the green light. There's going to be fans at Celtic versus Sibs, and I think the real big impact was seeing Hatate and Maeda for the first time. Maeda scores the first goal of the year, if you remember correctly, and I remember watching Hatate for the first time, and I did nudge my dad and I said, he's a player. I said, just watch the passes he's trying to play, and it's not always coming off. I said, he is a player, that boy. Do you remember that game back when? Do you remember watching Maeda and Hatate and hoops for the first time?
Yeah, I do. I was actually quite excited for it, because also I'd been watching particularly Hatate in the J League fantasy football stuff and whatever. So yeah, I was just kind of long waiting for these guys to get in at Celtic, start to get minutes and start to influence matches and stuff. So the St Johnstone game itself, I remember watching it and getting quite excited, seeing like that they were getting into the team right away, and we were seeing them straight away, because we had some injuries and stuff like for a lot of Ange's initial period at the team, and having guys that were coming in and hitting the ground running. Yeah, it was a good way to start the year. Let's say set the tone, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a good victory at Celtic Park, 2-0 against Hibs. We went into the Scottish Cup against Alloa, and I think this is probably the game that you look at as a bit of a turning point for for Georgios Giakoumakis. We won't work through every game here, by the way, in case anybody's worried that we're going to do that. But I think it's just important to kind of pull things out of games. This was a particularly kind of exciting period to look at in terms of Celtic going on to win that league title. But I think that was, for me, Quinny, the turning point for Giakoumakis, when you saw that penalty box striker kind of begin, and that was the kind of start of his goals. And if you remember right, he had that really mental statistic of scoring with just one touch finish in the box. Remember that?
Yeah, for his first like 10 goals or something, it was incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah. But that was a kind of, call that kind of turning point, I would say, for Giakoumakis. But then what I would say would the first big test of that calendar year was the visit away to Tynecastle. Easy to forget, with a lot of players out injured or in international duty. Maeda, one of them in international duty. But we had this wee guy, Rio Hatate, again, who came in, scored his first goal for the club. Giakoumakis scored on the night too. But what a strike that was for Hatate that night. Remember that one?
That was like the 40-yarder, wasn't it?
Yep.
Aye, that was an absolute topper. And again, like, he went on a great run when he first started. Like, what was his record at first? It was like 3 goals in 4 games or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
And it was like, when does it? This guy looked like he still looks very good, of course. But on that initial showing, I think we were all blown away. Like, wow, we've got this guy, and then I'm sure we'll come to him as well. But in that January window, we signed another midfielder. We still had Rogic recapturing his best form. We had McGregor running around, so. And then Turnbull as well. Turnbull was great for Ange at the beginning of this calendar year.
Played a lot of football. Played a lot of football at the beginning of the season, certainly, and then came back in. In terms of that game at Hearts, you're right to mention Matt O'Reilly there, because that was his Celtic debut, and he was really thrown in at the deep end. But what a game he had! I think he was first for everything on the park, and I just thought that was a real kind of turning point game for us. Quinn, if you remember right, Hearts got a penalty and hit the post, and had it went another way, you don't know how the final outcome of the season would have went, but we go on from that victory at Tynecastle, which we know is always difficult. We score late on against Dundee United when Abada scores and the place goes absolutely wild, which leads us into the first derby game of the season. But I just think that scoring so late on against Dundee United was key the weekend before getting into that midweek derby game, wasn't it?
Yeah, bad in the 90th minute. I just had a wee smile to myself there. If you look at the Hearts game back, the two subs, so Hatate and O'Reilly both get subbed off towards the end of the match, and their subs that replaced them was Sorrow and McCarthy.
Yeah. Well, a world apart.
12 months later, man,
Yeah, 12 months later, which is it's quite. I mean, even looking back in these games, I can remember these games, quite well. But I think the one that we'll all remember well is that 3-0 derby game. We had a shocking record against Rangers. I think prior to that win, that the last time we'd beaten Rangers in the derby was the 1-0 League Cup final when Julian scored the goal.
Yep.
We knew that it was in our own hands to win this game. We go back to the top of the league for the first time in God knows how long. And we absolutely blew Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's team apart.
Aye, absolutely rinsed them. Was it Gio that was in charge of them back then?
Yeah. He came in the November.
Yeah, of course he did. I forgot that. But yeah, it was a great sign of things to come, because when you look at that February run there, like you say, Rangers 3-0, and then from then onwards, scored 4 against Motherwell, 3 against Aberdeen. Obviously, we've got the Cup there, and then we've got Europa League. But then we're in a great run, 3 against Dundee. And then again, like all the games that we're winning, we're getting 2, 3, 4 goals, 7 goals. I'm kind of running ahead a wee bit in the calendar. But I think that kind of January, February period really did kind of show a lot of the players what the manager was trying to build towards with some of these. Because when Hatate comes in, when Maeda comes in, and the manager's doing all this stuff on the training ground, and like you say, guys were away in international duty all the time. We had fitness problems every week, it felt like. But when you had these guys that were purpose-picked to play this system, when we started to see them come in and influence the game and fit into this inverted fullback system and the high press and all the fun stuff that we do now, it really gave us, and it probably gave the players, a real insight into, wow, this is the level that we are pushing to be at, like, every minute of the game. And it really did set the tone really for the rest of the year, that kind of February period, I felt.
Absolutely. I think those, for me, when were the 3 key games in the space of a week, was Tynecastle away, beating Dundee United at Celtic Park, and then that derby victory. And again, I know there was a lot of noise in the background about the game being held back because of that issue that I mentioned, with no fans being allowed in the stadium. But it was the right decision, because it was a great night for Celtic fans that were there. I think had Rangers, had they been the shoe was in the other foot. I think they've done the exact same, and
Yeah.
we certainly took advantage of home advantage on that particular evening. But you know, I think the memory from that game you'll always remember is how quickly that second and third goal went in. You know, but we think people were still midway celebrating the second goal, and when the third goal went in, and really 3-0 probably wasn't a fair reflection in the game. It should have been a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, easily, especially when it's 3-0 at half time and it's at home. I remember that's one of the things with Celtic over the last 3 or 4 years is like, and it's not an Ange symptom, it's definitely from regimes from beforehand. But if we did have a good first half, we would do nothing in the second half. You know, it never really happened. And going into that Rangers game when it was like 3-0 at half time, like, wow, what could this score actually end up? And you know, we didn't exactly let up. I'm looking at the statistics now. In the second half, actually, there wasn't actually that many shots on goal, it must be said, but there's a lot of free kicks and a lot of corners and stuff. So, you know, I say the goals are the main thing that stand out in my mind. But I remember thinking at halftime, this could be something amazing. And then the game just kind of dripped away into nothing from memory, you know.
But it was the first time we went back at the top. We then went to Motherwell the following Sunday. We blew them apart 4-0. The game at Pittodrie wasn't the easiest of games, and it was disappointing. If you remember right, when we went 2-0 up, in the game, Aberdeen pulled back to 2 each. But right away we got the goal, and you know it was just that sign of, you know, I know we keep saying it, but we never stopped, because even though we'd been complacent to let that lead slip, you know, we responded right away, and that just kind of zapped Aberdeen right away after getting that wee bit of hope that we're back in the game 2 each. But then Celtic just got the partner score. I think it was Jota with the winner.
Yeah, it was
Jota.
Aye, right after it. 61 for Lewis Ferguson, 62 for Jota. Ralston with the assist. But yeah, it's a lovely kind of, you know, like some of these fixtures I've kind of forgot about until you open them up, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's the game Rogic got to, or that's the game, like you say, Jota, you ran up the pitch and stuff, because it's been all action from Celtic, you know.
The golf swing, if you remember,
celebration.
Yeah. With Joe Hart. Yep, remember that one? Yep.
Because the whole time it has been all action, and like we go for goals, we go to win games all the time. And part of the thing with the SPFL that is probably one of the things I would love to change about it is it's a wee bit Groundhog Day of a league. You know, we play the same teams 3 times guaranteed, and then you play maybe you play the top 6 once again, you know, for a 4th time. And sometimes when you think of Aberdeen, Motherwell, home and away, and it's like, oh, what season was that? Was that the first half of this season? Was that this season? Last season? Beginning, end, middle? But when you actually crack them up and open, it's like, oh, wow. And again, I'm laughing at some of the substitutions that have been made and how far apart they are from what we have now.
Do you think that says a lot about our summer transfer window, that you're now able to do that? And even again, that you're going into January just now, you're currently sitting at 3 signings coming in that's improving the squad, and you're probably likely to bring in more, which shows that Celtic have improved like they need to.
Yeah, I think we've had all the great sound bites from managers over the years in terms of like, oh, I want to do this, and the club is such a big club, and we should really be pushing on all levels. And you know, there's been tons of managers come through the door that say the right stuff and whatever, and then for whatever reason it happens or it doesn't happen. And you know, I'm sure we could go for every manager and explain why it did or didn't. But with Ange, there's no explaining needing done. He says something and it happens. And if he doesn't say it, then it's probably not going to happen. You know. Went from recruiting as well as play style and the way that we're dominating. So I think that, you know, like actually, like, you know, people like me and you, Declan, have been endlessly excited since Ange's came in, because it's like the first time you see Celtic ran the way we've dreamed about them being ran, you know, like throwing our weight about as a big club, going into other leagues, picking the best players out, making our team better, and having somebody at the helm that has the vision of going, let's push this as far as it will go, because we've got the facilities, we've got the fans, we've got the infrastructure. Let's just get it on the pitch and let's push it.
Yeah, the thing I always kind of come back to, Quinny, but everything over Celtic, you know, for the past 50 to 60 years, is managers who have had full control and full power in there always succeed and do well. And when that possibly starts to slip, or things start to don't go the right way, you really see it slip. But Jock Stein, Martin O'Neill, Brendan Rodgers, Jordan Strachan to an extent, full control in there always makes for better Celtic teams. And if you look back in the history, those who haven't always had that power and control over signings and everything else, you know, it doesn't always end well. So that's something that I'm really happy to see, that the manager has that control and power. You can see that with signings that arrive in and his place in the dressing room. And, you know, when you say he says things and always delivers, one thing he said after we beat Raith Rovers 4-0 in the Scottish Cup was, you know, he wasn't happy
Yeah.
with where the squad was at. If you remember right, I remember coming back in the bus from the game that day. It was a cold day, and I remember listening in, and you know, you kind of think to yourself, it was something that we hadn't become so used to. Even with a top manager and Brendan Rodgers or who or Neil Lennon, that you know, after a victory like that, they would come out and you know, the word slate's maybe a bit harsh, but you know what I'm getting at. You know, really be honest, refreshingly honest, and saying, "Yeah, we won the game, but I'm not happy," because I think at that point is when he wanted to see the point we're at just now, with a seamless squad transition. That players will drop out, some will come in, they'll step up, they'll be knocking at the manager's door saying, "Listen, I'm here. I want to play." To just read you the starting lineup from that day, Hart was in goals. It was a back four of Welsh, Ralston, Carter, Vickers, and Scales. Midfield of Hatate, Beaton, Rogic, and a front three of Mikey Johnson, Georges Yakimakis, and Jamesy Forrest. And then the subs that came on, Chris Julian came back from his injury. You know, that was the only game time he got. Adeguchi came on in the game too. Maeda came on and Jota. But you know, do you remember those comments, Quinn? It's also the video when he's standing with the hands in the pockets. My cousin described him the other night as a Sith Lord. See when he's got the hood up and he's, you know, kind of, he does a wee bit look like that when he's got the hood up. But you know, do you remember the video that I'm talking about? You like that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I do
You
like
can tell
that
you're
one.
a Star Wars fan like myself. But do you remember he's shouting and he's stop passing it back? There you go. There you go. And he's shouting, "Stop passing it back! Stop passing it back!" And in those comments after the game, which I think was a real sign of where we were at under him, because you could, you know, in your heart of hearts, you were thinking, yeah, as long as we go on and win this league title, everything's absolutely rose in the garden. But that wasn't enough for him, and this was kind of mid-February time.
Oh no, totally. And I think the thing that really struck home to me about it is it was genuine. Like you said before, like if Brendan Rodgers was in charge of this game, Strack and Dyla, anyone in between, I'd be like, yeah, good result. We've won 4-0, but I'm not happy with the performance. We need to do better. But well done. We rotated the squad, and it was nice to see Scales get a goal and GG and Beaton, and we move on to the next week. But when Ange did that pre-match presser, he was visibly like pissed off. You know, he was actually like really angry, you know, and you can't fake that. You know, like you can try and fake that if you're a manager and try and be like, oh, it's all about performance and result doesn't mean anything. But at the end of the day, see when you do win, I know from coaching teams and stuff, you'll kind of accept some nonsense. As long as you've won, you'll just be like, okay, well, you didn't do that corner the way I wanted it, or that chance you were through 1-on-1, you should have squared it. Hey, but hey, we won 4-0, we'll move on, we'll talk about it in training. And but he's not faking that. You know, he is real.
No.
And you know that if that's the way he is in front of a camera, what is he saying behind the closed doors or in the training ground, you know?
And it's been replicated, you know, just a matter of days ago after we beat Livingston 2-1 in the league. You know, it was the second game back. You know, I was trying to, you know, players benefit of the doubt. You know, coming back off the World Cup break and whatever else, it was maybe just taking us a wee bit of time, but it's not excuses that he likes. He doesn't like excuses. He expects his players to be ready, perform, and give the fans what they want. But then very quickly after that game, and again, you know, we talk about seeing real disappointment in him. We played Bodo, and it was a game we probably thought is obviously the first time that we go into the Conference League. And we maybe thought, yeah, this could be the chance to eventually put the hoodoo to bed. That not winning a knockout tie after Christmas in European football since 2004. But, you know, played off the park practically. That Thursday night game, Maeda scores a really good header, but that was a game that just kind of killed it. And you know, just to kind of take that tie as a whole, it then makes a hell of a lot of changes going over there. He's admitted why he did that, because he then thought, yep, the league does take priority at this point in time. I can't really see us pulling this back and everything else with it. And we're put out the Conference League. But, you know, I've said on here a lot with yourself, Quinny, that Celtic in Europa League last season, I thought the overlay kind of achieved at the point that we played DZ Alkmaar. We were nowhere near it, nowhere near the standard of the Europa League team. And yet we got into the Europa League. We gave a decent enough account of ourselves. You know, we went toe-to-toe with Bayer Leverkusen, really unlucky. In those games, we got maximum 6 points off Ferencváros. We beat Real Betis at home, ran them very close in Spain. But for Bodo, I think it's just one to kind of write off. And it's one that you will put down to experience.
Yeah, Bodo was one of these teams as well that were a bit of a unicorn in the competition. Like they'd done very well. And there's in Europe, there's always a team or two floating around that have got the underdog story, or they're the one that everyone's written off that they probably shouldn't do just through ignorance. Not saying us, but like the general Bodo went very far last year. They beat Roma, memory serves me right. I don't know if they knocked them out, but they definitely beat them. And so it's a wee bit of that. And I also felt with the Bodo game, I was really excited going into the first leg. I thought the final of the Conference League. I don't know if anyone will remember this. I'm sorry to bring it up, right?
But it's in Albania.
It was in Albania, but it was on the 25th of May, which is a nice date, And all the kind of graphics for the Europa League is green and black. So as soon as we went into that competition, I'm like, it's written in the stars. We're going to take this. But when we showed up against Bodo, it felt like we were watching a Rogers team, a Dyla team, something like that, because, those teams really struggled against Scandinavians. We could list half of those guys that we played, Mold, Malmo, anyone, Copenhagen, we struggled against all of them. And when we went out, that was a team, I didn't think it was an Ange team that played. It did feel like a Rogers setup. It did feel like a Dyla setup. And those teams in the Europa League, obviously the Conference League didn't exist at that point. But like these teams from Scandi, they fancied their chances, and in the game, especially at home, any time where we've not done well, these Scandi teams come to our place and they get wee goals against the run of play. The stadium maybe gets a wee bit of air sucked out of it, and then they went for the killer blow. So I was really disappointed by that, but it gave me optimism that we've probably still got a wee bit of the old guard to move on and bring in the new era a little bit. But it was a wildly disappointing fixture, of course.
Yeah, it was. And looking at the team, Quinny, that played over there, it's really similar to that Rafe Rovers team that had given it tight to just, Hart, Ralston, Wells, Starfelt, Scales, Beaton was the captain, O'Reilly, Rogic, Forrest Maida, Yakimakis. And it's a real indication of how kind of seriously he took it when you get guys on the bench, including Taylor, Abada, Jota, Carter, Vickers, Hatati, McGregor, Juranovic. There was 7 key first team starters for us left in the bench. So I think that gave you an indication of, the way that Celtic had approached that game. And, as I say, I think it's just one that you need to put down to experience and move on from. It was important, though, that we bounced back in the league after the home game.
Yep.
And we made it difficult for ourselves. Yakimakis with the late goal to seal the 3 points against Dundee. I think it's actually after that he comes out and he speaks about the squad being the best in the country, and we all kind of went, oh no, don't say that. But listen, I think he was only telling the truth at that point in time. His points proved dividends towards the end of the season. It was a bit of a nervy game, but almost I think at that point, Quinny, unlike the Dundee United game, I just felt like the goal was going to come just with the way we were playing football. And that's where the game, for me as a fan, maybe a lot of people will say Dundee United or whatever, that you don't start to get as worried now because you just think, yep, it'll come. Yeah, the goal's going to come for us. Don't worry, the dominant game will be fine. And then that was probably why the game following the away tie to Bodo at Easter Road was so disappointing, because we dominated the game away as well with a lot of great chances. It was 0-0, and it was the first point, I think, of the year that you fought in the league. We've made a mess of this. We've dropped points, and it gave Rangers a chance to go back to the top of the table. But then they dropped points at home to Motherwell. We're still fine, and we've got European football out the way for the season. It's back to concentrating the league, and then we entertained St Mirren at Celtic Park. It's not a game that we need to go over too much. It was 2-0, and that's basically all you could really say about it. It was a kind of typical midweek fixture. We weren't great. It was just important that we get back to winning ways. Got 3 points, and then that set us up well for the game away to Livingston, when eventually the hoodoo was offered back. We can't not talk about it, Quinny. It was a fixture that had became hellish. I think that's twice I've used it in this podcast, but it was hellish. And we went there, we matched them the way we kind of played football, and we got the 3 points eventually. And it looks as though now that it's going to be a place that we enjoy our football after going down and scoring another 3 goals this season so far.
Yeah, because prior to that, just for anyone that wanted to remember, Livingston had beat us, drawn, and beat us over the last 5 games at the Pasta Dome, or whatever we're calling it.
Tony Macaroni Arena, Spaghetti Had, whatever you want to call it.
Spaghetti Had, that's what I like. So yeah, it was a bit of a hoodoo, and yeah, it was a good result to get off because again, Livingston, there's a few away grounds in the league that, once you get, particularly at that point in the season, you get to the sharp end, you go away to Hibs, obviously getting a draw. I think that's an acceptable result in the grand scheme of things, really. Obviously, we won very convincingly there the other night, but considering we just travelled in Europe and yada yada, injuries and whatever. But yeah, Livingston away is definitely one of them as well. And as I'm looking towards the back end of the season, I think that was probably the last, maybe Ross County away before the season finished, but that was probably like the last kind of real away game where getting a result like that would give you a bit of momentum and would give you a bit of a lift, So it was a good result on a lot of levels.
And you've missed out the one there, and I'm glad you have that really kind of, I think, cemented our places. Yet we're going to go on and win this league title.
Yeah, I did miss it. Yeah, sorry.
we followed the game up at Livingston. We went to Tannadice. We won 3-0 away in the cup. We got to the semi-final of the cup. We lose out on an extra time. We don't think it's one to dwell on. We know that can happen in cup competition. It puts into focus more, Quinny, the fact, that Celtic had won a quadruple treble. We've been all those games unbeaten in cup competition football. You know how difficult it can be.
Yep.
Aiming for a treble, and Ange's first season was probably maybe a wee bit over the top. Rangers going to win the Scottish Cup. It would have been nice had we had that day out in the sun in May at Hampden, but that was how our Scottish Cup campaign ended the following month. We beat Ross County 4-0 at Celtic Park. I think Yakimakis scored a hat-trick in that day. And then the big one, the one I'm saying, that I think that cemented our place to that we're going to go on and win this league, was that 2-1 victory at Ibrox. Goals from Tom Rogic, his last goal for Celtic, believe it or not, in that game, and Cameron Carter-Vickers just before half-time. Great time to score. Rangers went 1-0 up early on. It would be great if we get a repeat of that on Monday, wouldn't it, Quinny? And I think that was a game that I had belief in the team, but that was a game I thought, yeah, we're definitely going to do this now, because if that was what way is this going to go.
The weird thing about Rangers last season was that I had ultimate confidence when we beat them as often as we did, but they were doing really well in the Europa League, and they were knocking out some really good teams. And it's just like, how are they able to do this black magic, and will they do it against us? But the Scottish Cup obviously was their day in the sun, but in the league when it mattered the most, obviously they weren't able to swing the tide in that sense. But yeah, again, just looking at it, Ramsey in the 3rd minute, Rogic in the 7th. Again, it's that we never stop. It doesn't matter, they've just scored. Don't let the air get taken out of the crowd. Don't let the wind get taken out of your sails. Keep going, get the ball back out, go again. So yeah, great result. And I make you right. I think, winning that, Rangers then at that point go, screw this. We are all about Europa League. Europa League's the biggest thing in the world, and all the rest of it.
How did that come out?
It didn't work out too well, I don't think.
But yeah, that's the game. That's the game I think we'll point at. And if we get a repeat of that on Monday, I think we'll all be delighted. We then thrashed St Johnstone 7-0. That had been coming for a long time, Quinny. Us just blowing a team away like that. There's a goal in it that's absolutely magnificent. I think there's about 25 passes before the ball hits the back of the net with O'Reilly. Great victory. I've mentioned that Scottish Cup semi-final game. We got with Dingwall. We won the game 2-0. It was touchy. It was difficult until we got that second goal, but we're sent down the road happy. And then we're into sunny May. If Rangers had any hopes of any kind of title challenge, they had to win at Celtic Park. They didn't. Won each draw. And then that leads us on to the third last game of the season, 4-1 against Hearts. We go 1-0 down in the game. You think, but towards the end of the game, we knew that the league was so close in, and it was just so nice to see the players. They didn't relax, but you could tell that they were starting to take it into their stride, that, yep, we're nearly over the finish line here. It would have been lovely had that been the day that we won the league, but you knew we were there by the 7th of May.
I remember that game quite well because the boy Sims again scores in the 3rd minute, and
that's a one. Yep.
It was like, wow, that's it happened. I know we've just cited the Rangers game, but it happened another occasion as well. And it's like, we've gave away the clean sheet in the first 5 minutes again, and then it kind of, and again, as you can see, we went on to score 4 that day, and obviously we beat Rangers as well. But we then got that little kind of narrative coming out where like, if you score against Celtic, you're just going to make them angry, Maybe it's not a good idea to score goals against them, So yeah, it would have been nice if we could have done it on that day, of course. And I remember that goal going in and thinking, Jesus Christ, no again, man. But like you say, there's so much confidence from the support into the squad that going 1-0 down at home or away or whatever in the first 10 minutes, nothing's lost. We've got a full team on the bench now. But the options are endless. So the game's never really away from us now, I feel.
That's it. And then it's up to Tannadice, as I say. I think it would have been nice had it been one at Celtic Park. just because of the crowd and it gets more people in and whatever else. But we got to Tannadice, we won on the Wednesday night. It was a great night. I know we didn't win the game, but when the ball hit the back of the net, Jackie Mack's saying that's mine, bang. And the scenes at the end were absolutely fantastic. I was behind the goal in the shed, and I remember when McGregor and the manager came over, and I think, for a lot of Celtic fans, I could get quite emotional at football, and I did in that kind of moment. I think when I saw the emotion in Callum McGregor, just because what we'd experienced the season before, he had been through it all. He probably had that dream of, being one of those players that had won that 10 in a row with Celtic. We lose the league, I think, 21, 25 points, we're behind, and we bounce right back and we go on to reclaim the title. It's his first season as captain, and we go and do it. That's the game up at Tannadice, and then it's, carnival atmosphere is what I've described it as. We maul Motherwell apart 6-0 at Celtic Park, trophy day, and again, great scenes at the end, and just really special. And again, I think for ourselves, for everything, everybody had been through COVID, losing loved ones, not getting to football, gigs, concerts, seeing family, seeing friends, missing out on holidays. To have that experience back in your life, much like the cup final in December time, different weather conditions. Of course, it was sunny when we lifted the league title. It was just nice for all that to come together, have that celebration, that joy, and come together as one again and lift the league. And, a special day under Ange Postecoglou. Hopefully many more after that.
It was a big party atmosphere. It did feel like a friendly. I don't even remember Motherwell doing anything. I just remember us going forward, scoring. And it was a nice way to cap the season off. And again, I think so much of the work, and it's probably the reason, a big part of the reason also we've wanted to recapture some of this at the end of the year, because some of this stuff that happened last year really has been so much of the legwork into what's been good for this season. We've done some January signings and whatever, right? But in the summer, really who came in that influences the starting 11 at the moment? Nobody, I don't think.
Possibly, you're saying Aaron Moy, aren't you? And he's not,
okay,
for
Moy.
the whole season, but he's not been that, that stamp, I think, as you're saying, Quinny, that somebody came in and that was it. I mean, probably the one, for devil's advocacy, people would say, Cameron Carter-Vickers, because he wasn't our player at that point in time. But as you say, the core of the team has still mainly been everybody that was already there last season. O'Reilly and Hatate, the latecomers to it, but everybody else kind of mainly the same core. Move on quickly. I'm just kind of looking at the time. I was trying to do it half an hour, but no chance that was ever going to happen. But we've been talking about this season, of course, on here, so we don't want to go over old ground too much. For the last 10 minutes, I want to touch on the derby and the game the other night. But again, carnival atmosphere. It was, again, the Aberdeen Flag Day. And again, that feels like so long ago, but, not that long ago, if you know what I mean, Quinny. It's even Welsh scores on the day, who looks, as far apart as he was for me at Easter Road the other night as he is from the first team at this point in time. I'm only kidding. He was 2 rows away from me, so he's not that far away. But yeah, 2-0 victory against Aberdeen. We got to Dingwall, and it was that old mantra again, Quinny. We never stop. We concede late on. Yakoviti, I think it is, scored a header. Big he does, aye. Big Yates is his first goal for Celtic. He was probably the one, actually, Quinny, until Starfelt's came back, who you would say he's played that kind of majority of football. But again, it's Celtic rolling through August, just to look at it. 3-1 up in Dingwall. We thump Kilmarnock 5-0. Starfelt eventually gets his first goal. Who is it? Scores an absolute cracker on that day for about 30 or 40 yards. It's Jota, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because he runs to Harry Cool, that's right. Beat Hearts 2-0 at Celtic Park, and then the 9-0 thumping up at Tannadice, which again, like the 7-0, could have been anything. I wouldn't be surprised if we do that to another team again this season, Quinny. Maybe not 9. I mean, that would be nice, but just
it's nice to think about.
just to be play football. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again. Would you?
No, not at all. And it feels like we're really building towards it, as we've kind of mentioned already, But I can't really contain myself, Declan. I'm really sorry. But looking at the game coming on Monday, I think, the manager's been building up. Like you say, the Aberdeen game at the beginning of the season doesn't really feel that long ago. It does feel like this whole season has almost been like a montage up till now, if you think about it back, it's like, that only feels like yesterday. Mm-hmm. And, the week before only feels like that game. So the World Cup now, like the World Cup is very much a memory. It's almost like it never happened at this point. So I think the manager has been very excited to run through this little fixture period that we've had. We've spoken about that in the last couple of episodes, but the crescendo piece of it is Monday, at 12:30 when we go over to the dark side to go back to the Star Wars chat.
Well, it will be. Yeah, could be a bit of Star Wars chatting today. But yeah, 9-0 up at Tannadice. Doesn't feel that long ago. One game, I think to pick out is that 4-1 victory to Ross County. When we really do rotate the squad, we spoke earlier about Rafe Rovers and rotating the squad, but this time we do it, and we absolutely blew Ross County apart. And you could then see that we were building towards this idea that we have, kind of two hybrid teams that can interchange and players will come in and they'll be absolutely fine. And that was probably why we did it a couple of weeks later at St Mirren. But just in that Ross County game, Quinny, and that idea, you could see that what the manager was building towards by doing that and making so many changes to the team.
Yeah, big time. And we're seeing that more and more. And again, it kind of comes back into the transfer business we've got, because if this boy Iwata, Kobayashi, the list goes on who we've got in the team. But like you say, if we get into, I think what the manager's kind of dream scenario is we assemble the team, we get into, a nice rhythm, and it is quite simply that he's got doppelgangers all across the pitch. So then every week he can just pick the best guy, and no one's going to get their feelings hurt, and no one's going to spit the dummy and be, oh, I should be starting this week and whatever. They all know their job, they all know their role, they all know they're going to get about 20 plus games a season anyway. But they're all fully integrated. The shape doesn't change, and a few guys play a few positions, as we know. But when we get the proof in the pudding in those results, you really see like, wow, this is going to be, because again, one of these things in football that commentators, pundits, whatever, talk about all the time is like, oh, you've got to bed in, you've got yeah, you do need to be coherent with your team and all the rest of it. But there's like Hatate, for example, right? Hatate has been fantastic at right back, but we spoke about this before, Declan. Like when we talk about Taylor and how amazing he is, those are the positions you kind of want Hatate to be in,
Mm-hmm.
But it's that inverted fullback that gets that space, that time, and then ends up in like attacking mid and whatever. Whereas the midfielders end up in fullback most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, a lot of the players we've got, they've got so many strings to their bow. They can be versatile, but the manager is very much, once we've got that template, really doesn't matter who's playing. As long as we're all singing from the same hymn sheet and we're all fully fit, doesn't matter. There's no strongest team. It's just the best team for today.
That's it. And, to read the team lineup against Ross County that Wednesday evening, Segrist in goals, Ralston, Welsh, Yents, Bernabe, McGregor, Moy, Turnbull, Abada, Maeda, Yakamaka. So you could kind of see that there was rotation there. With what you're leaving on the bench, Kyogo's and whatever else. So Hatate's another one, O'Reilly, etc. So you could start to see that. And then it's 4-0 against Rangers at Celtic Park. That we completely blew them away that game as well. And again, we speak about that 3-0 game being anything. That could have been anything. And, Lila Bada was absolutely outstanding for Celtic that day.
That was brilliant. That's probably one of my favourite memories of this year. So I was at that game and I was supremely drunk. It was a great result.
You were with the shirt and tie brigade, though.
I think I'm. Was
that not that game? I'm sure I was with the shirt and tie brigade, so I don't blame you for being supremely drunk, because I think anybody that's been in there and likes a drink and he struggles to.
No, I've had a few tickets to Celtic this year bestowed upon me, let's say, and one of them wasn't the shirt and tie brigade, and I think it was this game, but it was in the same section, but I didn't have my booze and my food laid on for me. But it was, I've got a great video on my phone. I think I put it on my TikTok a while ago of Turnbull's goal. It's just one of my favourite things of this year. I know it's not even. It's just funny. It's just so funny. Like, I don't know if anyone remembers it, but it's the little short pass from the goalkeeper, and Turnbull just picks his pocket with the press and then just slots it in to make it 4-0. And the funniest thing about it is right before that happened, I've got the video on TikTok if anyone wants to go see it, but we're all ripping into them. It's 3-0. Everyone's doing the zombie song. Everyone's up doing this. And then McGregor plays the ball short. Turnbull just takes the pass loose and slots it away. It was just pure comedy. It's so funny. And to make it 4-0 as well.
Because you actually said when I was kidding on last week, and you said, well, you were kidding on, sorry, when you said that Turnbull's goal was your favourite, but I can understand why. It's kind of that nice wee cherry on top of the cake, wasn't it?
It was just beautiful, man.
But again, spoke about that Scottish Cup semi-final, Quinny, but again, it's this kind of idea that Celtic's stamping their dominance over Rangers again, which is what we're hopeful is the same outcome. On Monday, back into the Champions League, we'll take that as a whole package. I said last week that, here in that Champions League, anthem, see Real Madrid walk out with Celtic, was one of the highlights of 2022. It absolutely was. The whole campaign, but we've spoken about it before. We just hope that we do learn lessons from it, come back. We need to be there constantly to compete at that level. The only way to do that is to win the league again this year. European journey's over, but we need to win the league and get back at the Champions League next year.
That's it. And yeah, totally. And the dynamic in Scotland is always, the derby matches, who's going to come out on top of them and that sort of thing. And like throughout the, I don't know, let's call it the last 10, 11 years or whatever, like it's been it's been for the most part one-sided, and then we get that kind of little fright for a year. I don't even know if we call it a fright, but the car crashes that were
behind closed doors stuff.
Yeah, I have the stuff from that season.
COVID ball, as everybody was calling it.
Yeah, the season we don't like to talk about.
I don't know what you're talking about, Quinny. I wasn't there. Nobody was there, so I don't know what you're talking about.
I've brought a mad Michael Francese YouTube hole recently. I don't know if you know who that is, but it's like he's like a proper mafia gangster, and that's one of the things he talks about with that thing where they don't talk. It's like, as soon as it happened, what are you talking about? I don't even know. So it's like as soon as that season's done, it's the same kind of, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yep.
So to get the monkey off the back and really start like in those games, because I feel that the season that got away from us, let's say, the old firm, the derby games did do some decision making towards who won the league in the end. But for me, it was kind of the difference on the Aberdeens away and the Ross Counties and these kind of fixtures that really made the difference. So to come into this season, we're blowing teams away. We're scoring 9 against Dundee. We're scoring 4s for fun, 3s for fun. We can get 5 on occasion. That's all well and good. But in the biggest game, and we've not been shy, putting 4 by them, putting 3 by them. And, it's, huge. I don't think, we have been just as impressive against Rangers under, maybe Rodgers, maybe 1 or 2 others. But, like, actual on the pitch doesn't feel like they're anywhere as close to us. Even under Rodgers, even though we would do really well, you did go into those games thinking, if we don't take our chances and they take theirs, we're not going to win today. Whereas now it's kind of like, as long as we are 90% what I think we are, I'm not bothered. Like, I'm not worried about what they've got to offer.
It's just really a bad thing. These games, I do sleep at night, but it's one of the ones, Quinny. And I'm going to Ibrox on Monday, and I'll have the same feeling that I get going there every time. It's always but it could be the greatest feeling in the world when you walk out if you win the game, which I've done so far twice when I've been in the corner. So hopefully it's third time lucky for us in that case. But kind of moving on, St Mirren, disappointing one in the league. It's the only disappointment in the league so far this season. As I keep saying, I've said on here before, I think if you were at the point you are now with players and where they're at, that result probably wouldn't have happened. I know a lot was kind of thrown towards Welsh and Jensen that day, but our attackers didn't really show up in the day. We got a kind of first flash. I see attack Sabanovic. He'd made his debut against Shakhtar, I think, just previous to that. St Mirren game, again, you just need to put a line under it because Celtic's form in the league has been absolutely outstanding. People, I think's biggest frustration was that we were getting into an international break and the manager rotated the team around. But as you say, he picked what players he thought was best to do the job that day, and ultimately they let him down on that day. And again, I'm sure lessons have been learned from that. I think it's 12 games in the bounce. We've now won in the league since then, so that really tells you everything you need to know. It was then the big grueling amount of games. Motherwell at home, Leipzig away, St Johnstone away. Again, it's even that game, you kind of thought we're going to get another chance. We conceded so late, go up the park, Yakimakis scores and the place goes absolutely crazy. It was coming for a long time, the St Johnstone goal, but again, you were thinking, we're going to let this slip here, but up the park, score. Over to Leipzig, we thump Hibs 6-1. James Forrest gets his 100th goal for Celtic. Since then, he's went on to score, I think, 101 goals now, and he's went over 100 assists too, joining only Henrik Larsson and Jimmy Johnson as the only 2 company, I think, with that. So fair play to James Forrest for that. We go to Motherwell, we thumped them 4-0. But we'll stop at this one. Hearts 4-3. When VAR was introduced to Scottish football.
Of course.
A game for that. We don't need to go over it again, but we really showed our resilience that day, didn't we? When it was not just the team on the park that we were up against, it was everything we were up against, really.
Yeah, 2 penalties for Hearts, a disallowed. I don't remember our disallowed goal for Ralston. but that's shown here. And then
I know.
Taylor, and then we've got this goal right at the end with Abada. I don't really remember that.
Yeah, offside, and we've got a penalty denied too with a handball. But we really showed our resilience today. And again, Greg Taylor's been one of my standout players so far this season, and for him to get the winner, I thought was absolutely fantastic.
That was a great game for him. And yeah, as you say, like I think that is probably nice you brought that up in time with me being super confident ahead of Monday, because it's external stuff that's the only worry. Is the VAR, is the refs, is the bookings, who gets booked, who doesn't get booked. Is it a penalty? That's the only thing that I that kind of gets in Celtic's way. And it's the manager again. The thing I love about the manager is he wears his heart on his sleeve, and there is no pretenses with him. Whereas sometimes I think, again, I've mentioned his name a few times, so I'll do it again. But you did get the feeling with Rodgers, he's kind of like playing that. He's playing like a character, and he's like doing all the sound bites and saying the right stuff. But everything that Ange says, he really means. And even in other results where things have went against us, he never wants to talk about refs. He never wants to talk about decisions. He'll always say our performance, our chances, ours. But since there's the introduction of VAR, like it's really tested the big man, in that sense, because some of the decisions that have in the early stages that maybe they're getting a bit better now, we'll soon see on Monday. But in the early couple of games, it was blatant cheating. There was some blatant stuff that going against us.
It was brutal, absolutely brutal. You saying that about Brendan Rodgers, I've always thought Quinny, had he still been alive, Alan Rickman would have been the perfect person to play Rodgers in a film. And just the way he is, I just think I'm not a big fan of Alan Rickman, as I probably still am with Brendan Rodgers, but I just think perfect characters to kind of to and you would get a Robert De Niro or something. You get somebody really cool. But Alan Rickman I think would be my Ange. Maybe Al Pacino for Ange, actually. I think that'd be cooler, wouldn't it? Maybe. Imagine Al Pacino doing Ange with it this jump.
Russell Crowe.
Fantastic. I don't know. He's got the beard, hasn't he? I don't know.
Russell Crowe could be Harry Kuehl.
I will go for that. But not to dwell on our movie taste too much. Again, we've said we go to Livingston, we win there again. Jota scores a screamer in the Bernabeu. It's worth mentioning that. 4-2 against Dundee United. Again, it's late on, but we get there. Go to Motherwell midweek, get the job done. Ross County, World Cup break comes. As you say, that feels like a long time ago. Since, Argentina got beat with Saudi Arabia, Qatar were stinking against Ecuador, blah, 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 from those first games. We come back, we've got the Sydney Super Cup in now. We don't need to talk about that. It's fresh in the memory. We got to Pittodrie, we win 1-0. 2-1 against Livingston. Again, the comments after the game are almost identical to after that Rafe Rovers game. We come back with a response since we've last been on. Thump St Johnstone at home, 4 going in 7 or 8, I think, Quinny, would be fair to say. And Leeds is on for the last 8 minutes. Well, we blew Hibs away on Wednesday night at Easter Road. It's as dominant a performance I've ever seen at Easter Road. Even, I think you need to go back to 2014, January 14, the last time that we won so comfortably at Easter Road, nearly 9 years ago. It was just dominance from start to finish.
Yeah, it was a great game. And, a lot of question marks were in the team. Hatate staying at right back, of course, was great. Moy started, Maeda starting. Because everyone, I listen to as much Celtic fan media as I can possibly get time in the day for. And I think everyone that I listen to, we're all in this kind of consensus of always trying to put ourselves in the manager's mind when picking the team for the next game and whatever. And, he's good for a wild card, and he's good for sticking with players that are in good form. And that showed really much in the last 2 games, because the last 2 games we scored 4 goals apiece. And and everyone watching this will probably remember from Livingston, Aberdeen, all the way back pre-World Cup. I'd probably go back to maybe the Dundee United game. I know we scored 4, but it was late on. But we went through a real spell because of the Champions League of building this this public picture, if you like, that we weren't taking our chances and we weren't being clinical enough. So in the last 2 games, for us to really seem clinical and really start taking our chances, I don't think it's any accident that Moy and Maeda are in the team when this is happening, in the positions that they're in, because both of these guys are 100%. No one scouted them. The manager said, I want that guy, and we've got him. There's no data on, there obviously is data, but like that's not the process we've went through to acquire these guys. So having his like champions, if you like, on the pitch, implement the football the way we've kind of spoken about, I don't think it's great to see. It surprised a lot of folk. And I think I think the last two results have been great watershed moments. I think to maybe put a wee bit of the Champions League stuff in the back burner and kind of move forward with a season for the rest of the year.
Yep, and again, we're kind of doing that. I know he didn't play under Ange Postecoglou for a great deal of time at Yokohama, if any. We brought in Iwata, who he obviously has a good pedigree and knowledge about too, in a position that seems a bit difficult to fill for us this season. So, yep, we're delighted to get him in the door. Quinny, last 5 minutes, can't let you go. Monday is big game. I think a lot of people are saying, Rangers being league challengers in this need to take something for it. As long as Celtic don't get beat, I think it's not all but over, but you've taken a big step towards that league title again, even in early 2023.
Yeah, it's if you do Michael Beale maths, this game's a 12-pointer. So,
I thought it was only 3 points behind, wasn't it? That's right.
Yeah, this is a 12-pointer for Rangers, so we'll see what happens in terms of their tactics and whatever. Beale's been getting a lot of stick, right? You see, give the guy a little bit of credit. Like I do, I think he's a fantastic coach from what I've seen of him, like SFA conferences and stuff like that. I think he's a very good coach. Whether he's a number one is obviously yet to be seen. But I am very confident going into this game. But I think I'm very confident going into this game because Beale and Gerrard at their peak, that kind of team that birthed that Europa League run, and obviously the season that Gerrard was successful, the football is negative. The football is tight, foul, counter-attack. Stay in the game, try and break, try and get a penalty, try and get a bit of luck. And I think that's the game he's going to try and play. And if he's going to do that at home, then the support that they've got probably won't be too happy with them longer than 5 minutes because we're going to be in their half the whole game. And if they do try and go against that, kind of like we've seen with maybe even Hibs to a degree, if they do open up and try and play us, then we're just going to cut their throat. Like we're so clinical now. We're so in such a great high tempo. You look at our bench, you look at their bench. Like as long as the longer the game goes on, they've got less options, less weapons to call upon, whereas we have more and more and more. So I expect it to be a tough game. I expect lots of cards. I expect lots of fouls. Maybe there is only a goal or two in it, but I don't think the result, unless anything dodgy happens, like they get a penalty in the first 10 minutes or we get a goal chopped off for no bloody good reason, anything mad like that aside, I'm not really worried, really, to be honest. And I'm sorry if anyone gets upset to hear that before the game.
Well, listen, hopefully we're looking back on it and, clipped up to be put on a fans forum website or something. But, listen, everything just now is going Celtic's way in terms of results. So we were playing football, top marks to Aaron Moy for the other night. I think it's fair to say that, we've not been two people that have happened me a big stick on here, Quinny. I think his quality has shone through. Had he not had the time he had in China, you'd be paying £5-6 million for somebody at his quality. So to get him in, I know obviously he trained with Rangers too. So you improve your team with that, and I think he would have boosted Rangers had he went there. Not that you should just be signing players for that sake. A big shout out to Scott Allen. Good afternoon there. But I think that was a sign, and again, you and I keep on champion Dyson Maeda. It was nice to hear what Ange said the other night about him because you can see it in his game. I didn't know he had that in his locker to do that, Quinny. I was surprised as anybody. I think it was more shock and celebration when he did it because I thought, what was that? Because I keep going on about Maeda kind of being this team player that when the team plays well and they press, he comes into his own. And it's Jota and Abada that kind of do that thing when they take the ball, go past a player, and then bang it into the top corner. But there he was. 2023 Celtic wise, what is your hopes? It's obviously to win the league title. The T word is going to be there, but we're obviously in the semi-final of the League Cup. If we hope to get past Kilmarnock and pick our place in another final, we've got Morton in the 4th or 5th round of the Scottish Cup. I can't remember exactly what number. I think it's the 4th round you go into it first. There's a lot of hope just now that this Celtic team is just going to continue to improve. We'll see what other signings come in. We'll be covering it every step of the way on here, every week. Hopefully next week we're on with Smiles Like Cheshire Cats after a hopeful derby victory. But I think it'd be a miss of us to not mention Quinny towards the end of this show, and remember the Celtics that we've lost this year. Obviously, I think the one that stands out is John Hughes and others. But as well as that, fans, supporters, everyone who will be raising a glass to it and hug me. And obviously, most recently from the world of football in Pele, I wanted to mention my own here. I think, spoken on, you and I spoke about Messi being the greatest of all time. It's up for debate. A lot of people will say it's Pele. Certainly his legacy and mark in the game is something you cannot underestimate. For everything he won, he's the only player to have won 3 World Cups. His performances at those World Cups, especially as a 17-year-old, is absolutely phenomenal. He had a amazing goal scoring record at Santos. I know he latterly goes on to play in America. That league doesn't work out and everything else. He's had, I think, every ambassadorial role in world football. He's well respected across world football. But I think the best tribute you could probably play to Pele is his smile and love of the game always shone through in him. And, from people I've seen different photographs, Scottish people as well, when he did a kind of sportsman's dinner here, very humble guy for everything he achieved in the game, much like, the great Maradona, who we all have adore and respect.
Yeah, sure, for sure. Well, Pele is one of these cultural icons that, even if you don't know football, except for my wife, like I couldn't believe. Like, last night I said to my wife, I was like, "Oh, Pele's died," and she's like, "Who?" I'm like, "Really? Like you're probably the only person on earth that doesn't know the word Pele or the person." She's also not into football, or whatever, to say the least. But everyone should, except for my wife, everyone should know the name Pele, and at least that smile, like you say, that smile, that kind of face, and one of those images of him with a World Cup. It's such a huge pop culture kind of thing. Because it was really like the revolution of football, and a large part going into television and becoming a household like entertainment kind of thing. And he's been long touted until the last 15 years. Easily has been in the top 2 best players of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. So footballing wise, I think one to remember, adore and love for the rest of time. As long as football's continued to be played, I think his name will always be closely linked with it. And as I say, his love for the game. And again, it's been nice to see some wee Celtic connections with Pele too. Um, Brazil played Scotland, 1966 at Hampden, and Stevie Chalmers scored for Scotland on the day. John Clark was also playing that day, and everybody was wanting his jersey, but Pele swapped with Stevie Chalmers, which is quite cool.
Nice.
And he just kind of jersey off and said, "There you go." And Stevie said, "Cheers." And there's also a story, later years that I think it's the early 80s. John Clark must be Big Billy's assistant at the time, and then in a lift with the team, and he comes in, and it's Pele that recognises Clarky rather than just the way John is.
Rather McNeil. Right.
And he kind of points at him and he says, Scotland, Hampden, 1966, yeah. And just, that kind of be nod. And obviously, you've seen the
Football
photograph
guy.
of holding the Celtic jersey with a young Paul McStay. And in later years, I think it was for a charity do. He was, signing Celtic jersey, Scotland top and whatnot. So, yeah, one to be remembered. 2022 is a year, Celtic-wise, will always, I think, be one that is going to be fondly remembered by us all. It'll be even more fondly remembered if we're going to do the business in 2023. Thank you to all our listeners who have joined us in 2023 for the ride. And Ange Postecoglou spoke about going on the roller coaster and strapping yourself in. And we're still well on that roller coaster at this point in time. We'll be here all along the way covering Celtic for the rest of the season. Quinny, been a pleasure this year. All the best when it comes, mate. And to all our listeners, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us, and hail, hail.
Hey, well, on the hoops.